I'm a former immigrant technology entrepreneur in the UK who achieved UK citizenship based on multiple visas and scaling my tech venture across 30 UK cities in the UK and hiring a total of 13 people. And today, I want to talk about the Innovator Founder Visa if you're considering starting a business in the UK under this visa pathway. So, if that's your goal, this video is definitely for you, and let's get into it. Alright, so before we go into the video, let me just give you a brief background about me in case you're new to the channel and this is your first time watching my videos. So first and foremost, welcome to the channel and welcome to this video, regardless of who you are. So as I said, I'm a former technology entrepreneur in the UK, but the bigger picture is a lot more than that. I actually moved to the UK when I was a 17-year-old teenager, technically, and I pretty much got on a plane all on my own to go and study a foundation degree. And then I did my bachelor's degree in the UK and then my master's degree in international law at Newcastle University. Now, after graduation, I had this career dilemma because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I mean, I had a lot of options and entrepreneurship was one of them. So I did venture into entrepreneurship and I got what was called the Tier 1 Graduate Entrepreneur Visa. It was a former visa scheme. Anyways, afterwards, I got a second endorsement for the same visa from my university, Newcastle University. But I switched to the 3-year-long visa called the Tier 1 Entrepreneur Visa. Now, during that visa, I grew my tech venture, as I said, to over 30 UK cities within 3 years. I hired a total of 13 people, and we almost closed the funding round before I had to shut the business down thanks to the 2020 pandemic. So food for thought that everything can go well until it doesn't really go well anymore due to some external event completely beyond your control. Anyways, during this time, I also got approved by the NatWest Entrepreneur Accelerator, which was a legacy endorsing body for the former version of the current Innovator Founder Visa, which was just simply called the Innovator Visa. So I've pretty much lived and breathed this journey. Okay, so first-hand experience that I'm transferring to everybody else. And I'm not just some guy sitting with a camera and a mic and trying to sell you some visa dreams or anything like that. So just to get that one clear. Anyways, I transitioned into this consulting for over 2.5 years now. And I've helped over 100 founders with their business needs and their corporate immigration needs all around the world. So I don't just focus on the UK alone. I focus on a number of other countries. For full details, you can check my website on that one. But the merit of this video, obviously, is to talk about the Innovator Founder Visa. So let's get into that one. All right, first and foremost, what exactly is the Innovator Founder Visa? Let's talk about this one. So the Innovator Founder Visa, I would say it's the primary visa pathway for people who want to set up a new business in the UK. That's a key word, a new business. Now, let me elaborate on that. Now, it's not the only option that you have. I mean, me and my co-founder, who is a regulated immigration advisor, have recently done a very long video on these. So I would really encourage you to watch that video as well to know your full options. But with the Innovator Founder Visa, the key thing is that the business has to be new, and that's not the only thing. Okay, so it's about having a business that is innovative, viable, and scalable. That's very important. So we'll talk about the criteria in more detail, and then I'll go into detail about each one of these elements. All right, so for the sake of clarity, let's talk about the key criteria that is defined by the UK Home Office. Now, I would strongly encourage you to read the government guidelines about this. I'm happy to refer you to them, but it would give you a much clearer picture of what to expect. Anyways, when this visa pathway was introduced in 2023, it's a very new visa. So the spirit of it was that they want competent founders who are bringing innovative concepts to the UK. So it's not essentially, let's say, a lower tier investment pathway. So where you come and you bring some money, I don't know, 50 grand, 100 grand, something like that, and you put it in a business and then you're listed as a founder basically, and that's pretty much your contribution. You need to be behind the concept, or you need to be a founding member behind the concept. That's very, very important. And it's very important that you understand the spirit of the guideline. And as I said, three key things: innovation, viability, and scalability. And I would say each one of them matters in their own respect. So a lot of people will say, no, if you solve the innovation, you've solved everything else. Not necessarily, because you could have an innovative concept that simply doesn't meet the viability and scalability thresholds. So this essentially is a puzzle where you have to balance everything out very, very well. And that's what makes it hard, I guess, at the end of the day. So two key things to take from here: new business, you need to be behind the business, and the criteria: innovation, viability, and scalability. Now, let's start with innovation. As they say, the $1,000,000 question. This is one of the most confusing parts about this visa, unfortunately. And I guess that's why there is a lot of debate around it. I mean, I've personally been very vocal about the innovation element myself. So when you look at the previous videos I've posted, or even when I spoke to one of the endorsing buddies very recently, so about 3 months ago, I did a very in-depth interview with one of the endorsing buddies called Innovator International. I would really encourage you to watch that video. It's full of helpful information. So, and importantly, it shows you how they assess the application. It shows you their perspective. And at the end of the day, they're the ones making the decision. So that's quite important to be aware of. Now, with innovation, the trickiest thing is understanding what it really is. This is one thing that I actually help founders navigate. So I offer an evaluation call. Actually, it's the gateway to any other service that I offer in relation to this visa. So after this call, if I determine that your idea is not suitable in terms of endorsement, then I don't really proceed with further services until you make those improvements. And this is solely in the interest of being fair, because I don't want to charge people for an idea which I'm fairly certain that they will just get refused. So that's one. If you want to book an evaluation call, scan this QR code, or there is a link in the caption in this video. So I would really encourage you to do that. Now, during this call, I will evaluate your business in terms of innovation. But if you're not going to book a call, I'm still happy to provide content that will be helpful for you. So let's talk about what they actually mean by innovation. Now, there's three key things with innovation. First and foremost, your business idea has to be different from what exists in the UK market. And that makes it very challenging, because I would say most good ideas will have some form of a competitor out there. But for the sake of argument, if there is a direct competitor doing exactly what you're doing, and most likely if they're established in the UK, you will likely not qualify. Secondly, you need to have a very clear, strong, and defined unique selling point. And that differentiates you from other competitors as well. So this one is really subjective. I can't really tell you how to go and develop a USP on a general video without knowing what your concept is. So it's very important to know that every case is subjective, and there is only a certain limit to how general guidelines or videos like this can be helpful. And everything has to be assessed based on your own specific business. But for the sake of clarity, USP, very clear USP that differentiates you from other players in the market. And this nicely leads to the third point, which is replicability. The key thing here is if somebody else wants to copy your idea, what is going to prevent them from doing so? Okay, this is very challenging. So let's put it this way. You launch a really creative business. It's a very innovative idea. And then somebody else with more cash, more connections, more resources than you, or some corporate is even worse because they have far more resources than any other individual. So some corporate player thinks, oh, this is a very good idea. We're going to go and create the solution. Or we will just tweak our own solutions, our existing solutions to match this and then become pretty much your direct competitors. So it's about how you will prevent people from doing that. Again, I cannot tell you a clear recipe on how you can do this. I can't tell you, yeah, do X, Y, Z, and you're going to meet this because I don't know what your concept is. And that's something that, again, it's very subjective and unique to your specific business. But I would say that's pretty much the principle of it. And this is something that during evaluation calls, I help people understand and develop because I've been in this technology ecosystem for about 10 years now. Secondly, viability. This is a very interesting one. And to be very honest, I think it's a well thought through requirement. I definitely think this visa pathway has its own policy shortcomings and flaws, but we're not here for a critique. We're here to talk about what the requirements actually are. Now, with viability, it actually concerns several things, I would say. First and foremost, it concerns you. So you can't just have a good idea, an innovative idea that can actually be scalable as well. You are a big factor in this as a founder. And what's really relevant here is if you've got the background and competency and the skills or the qualifications to be able to go and do this. So let's say, I don't know. Okay, let's say what I want to do is I want to go and develop a vaccine. I'm not, but for the sake of argument. But I have no medical background. I've got a law background. And I just want to do it just as a sole person. And I just have this really cool idea. That's not really viable, you see, because I don't really have the skills or background, or I don't have somebody else on my team who has that skills and background. So the business's viability will very much be under question. So that's one. So it's about you. And this is something that a lot of people have to understand, that you're not just selling the idea, you're selling yourself as a founder. And this is not just to endorsing buddies. If you want to raise funding at a later stage and you want to talk to, I don't know, angel investors, venture capitals, things that I've done myself, and I would say a lot of them actually invest in the founder as well. And it's the key things here are the founders' competency and integrity, especially with funding. Hopefully, I will get into this in more videos in the future, but that's one. The other aspect about viability is also the external environment around the business. Okay, so let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to find a very good example here. All right, let's say this one. For example, this is all hypothetical. Let's say I have identified this market gap where I think in Iran, where I'm actually originally from, so let's say I identified this gap where a lot of people like beer, for example, okay? And I'm sure that a lot of people will come and buy it, for example. So I want to go and do this. It's an innovative idea, especially let's say I want to do it in an app. Apps don't necessarily make it innovative, but I'm just using the example here for you. So I want to say, I want to do this. There is a big market. It will scale a lot. But the issue is alcohol is illegal in Iran. So really, there is this regulatory barrier that prevents me from doing that. So compliance is a very big thing, and it really falls under this viability aspect. So these are the things that you have to understand, that it's the idea, it's about you, but it's also about the external environment. The last point on viability is the initial capital. Now, unfortunately, one of the most misleading ways that a lot of people advertise this visa is no more investment requirement. Yep, not officially, but theoretically, you still have an investment requirement. And that is to launch and scale the business until you reach the break-even point, whenever that is, and whatever that is, until then, you have to be able to fund the business to do that. And you need to show that you have access to that initial capital. With a lot of ideas, I mean, especially with not necessarily just tech, but I would say a lot of ideas, this figure could be way over £100,000 to do that. I'm not saying some of them you might be able to do with 30 or 40 grand, but that's the point, that you need to have this initial capital to be able to launch the business. Now, what the funding source can be, that varies. It can pretty much be from anywhere as long as it's a legitimate source. So that one is very important to keep in mind. Now, last one, scalability. Scalability is about pretty much the potential of how big the business will get, especially after 3 years. So if you have an idea that does satisfy innovation, that does satisfy viability, but only it serves a very limited niche, okay? The customer base cannot really increase beyond a certain point. So that you will probably fall short of scalability. They ideally want a business that will definitely scale nationally, regionally, but also internationally. This is not really a bizarre requirement. I mean, if you look at other startup visas, for example, Ireland's STEP visa, which is pretty much the Irish equivalent of this visa, it requires a very similar thing of selling in international markets. So it's about having this potential to scale, but also you drafting and demonstrating the strategy of how you will scale it and how far the business will actually go. Very, very important. Okay, so keep that in mind. And that's a very, very key thing about this visa. Okay, so now that we've clarified viability, innovation, and scalability, I hope it's a lot more clear for you now of what they actually expect. Let's talk about what the endorsing bodies want and who they even are. There is officially 4 endorsing bodies appointed by the UK Home Office. These are external organizations. For example, I did have an interview with one very recently, and as I said, I would really encourage you to go and watch that video. So these are external organizations that have been appointed by the UK Home Office to assess and vet and monitor your Innovator Founder Visa application. So you can see a list of them here on the gov.uk. But the key thing here to understand about the endorsing bodies is that you won't just get the initial endorsement and then it's a 3-year-long visa, bye-bye. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have checkpoints with the endorsing bodies at 12 months and then at 24 months. After 3 years, if your business meets certain criteria, then you can apply for settlement and you need another endorsement from the endorsing bodies to get the settlement. So keep that in mind. This is an ongoing relationship with the endorsing bodies. And most importantly, it's very, very important to have realistic projections in your business plan. I cannot stress this enough. Do not overinflate your figures to make the application more impressive. It will come and bite you later on in time, and it will bite you very badly. So please keep that in mind. Another thing I want to talk about, I guess, with this one, which leads me to this, is some do's and don'ts, generally some tips. Now, I can give you a full list of these once we have a call together, but for clarity, I will share some of them here. So, things to do. Number 1, leave plenty of time to validate your concept. Please don't leave this to the last minute. This is a very big mistake that you can make. This life path of entrepreneurship, it's not something that you just venture into very quickly. It requires a lot of pre-planning and time to be spent into it. Please learn from me. I've done this for 10 years. So that's number 1. The other thing I want to say is make sure you have a very solid business plan. That's a very, very important one, because the business plan is pretty much how you will articulate all of this. So if you meet all of the criteria, but you don't communicate it properly through a bad or poor business plan, then that will probably risk your endorsement application as well. So keep that in mind. Now with business plans, again, I do provide assistance with them. Mostly I review business plans, but sometimes, depending on my time and availability, I write them. But I take about 12 business plan writing projects per year. So I guess that one is quite competitive because I write every single one myself. So keep that in mind. The other things I would say to do is to really validate your concept before you apply for endorsement. Don't just rely on desk-based research. That's very, very important. This list is endless, to be honest. I can talk about these things for another hour, so I'll wrap this up very quickly. But a few things not to do. Please keep this in mind. You're gonna save yourself a lot of time, money, and stress if you just take these tips on board. The things not to do: do not use business plan templates. I know there are people out there providing templates for the business plan, and they charge you something like, I don't know, £30 or £50 or even £100. I don't care how much, really, or even if they're just giving it for free. Look, the reason why you shouldn't use templates is if you use a template and everybody else uses the same template. Yeah, we're talking hundreds of people here. So everybody else uses the same template to apply. There's only four, but technically three endorsing buddies here. Um, so they're going to notice that there's this pattern of the same template recurring in their applications. And as an applicant, if you don't have the vision and creativity to create your own plan and have to rely on some cheap template that is sold online, how do you think that makes you come across? Something to think about. Number two, do not use unregulated immigration advisors. Okay, now this is very important. So what I help with is purely the commercial side. But I realized because this is an immigration pathway at the end of the day, because some people may require help with the post-endorsement stage for their actual visa application or complying with their visa, me and my co-founder, who is regulated in the UK and is based in London, our firm is regulated by the Immigration Advice Authority in the United Kingdom. So if you do have immigration queries or the commercial ones, we solve everything for you in one place. So you don't have to work with me and then go to some lawyer and pay them, I don't know, 200 something plus VAT for 1 hour for them to just read out a bunch of public guidelines, which you could just access yourself. So the key point is do not use unregulated advisors. Especially offshore firms. There's a lot of them out there, and I'm not saying all are bad necessarily. Maybe there are some good ones, but it's better to do this with an immigration advisor that is regulated inside the UK. So do your due diligence, or just don't and use our firm because we are, and you can check all of this on the IAA register yourself. So there is that one. Now, the process itself. Let's talk about it. Now, the timeline of the process is very subjective. So obviously, you have to do the things that I said, developing your concept, developing your business plan, a bunch of other things as well. But once you do that, you have to apply for endorsement. The endorsement itself, again, it's subjective, but I would say it will take about 4 to 8 weeks for you to get the final outcome. So 4 to 8 weeks, and then you actually have to apply for your visa. Now, applying for the visa, again, that will differ if you actually apply from inside the UK. So let's say you're already on a visa and you want to extend or switch to this visa. It will take about 8 weeks. And if you're applying from outside the UK, it will take 3 weeks. So the endorsement that you get, it's valid for 3 months generally. So that really is your prerogative. But those key timelines are very, very important to keep in mind. But again, word of warning, don't think, oh, okay, I'll just do the plan, I'll just do it in a few days, and then, it requires 2 months or 2.5 months, and then I'll get the visa. Not really. I would put a lot of time into your business plan, personally. So it's better to ideally stick with me today, and I can guide you in the right direction so you don't burn this time, and you develop your plan with the right direction in your mind. So very, very important. That's pretty much it, really. But for further information, feel free to visit my website or our firm's website. And as I said, we're regulated in the UK. And we don't just, our firm is UK based, but me personally, I don't just focus on the UK Innovator Founder Visa alone. I do focus on a number of other startup visas. For example, Ireland's STEP visa, that's another one that I actually do work on as well. So feel free to check it all out, and I hope that helps. Once again, until the next video, I'll see you later.